I don't know what I'm doing with this opening. Speaking of openings, you know that really cool DC Universe Online opening cutscene that gets recommended every monsoon? Ever wondered what the rest of the story was, but don't want to play a game where you look like this? Well, here's your answer, dude. DC Universe Online's Requiem for a Dream, Retribution of the Fallen, of the Revenging Killer Moon, and the Return of Jafar, written by Marv Wolfman and a story by Tom Taylor. These comics are actually pretty good. Like the Injustice comics, it's a bleak epic where the heroes are like guerrilla fighters against insane odds. But at the center of it, instead of surprising you with how far Superman can fall, it surprises you with how much Lex can change.
Something changing your mind.
The comic immediately begins after the cutscene ends. Lex kills Superman by giving him a back massage with a spear. He had a deal with Brainiac, you see, where Lex could rule the Earth, hoping their equal boldness would make them trusted homies. But Brainiac betrays him anyways. So, as Lex from the future is forced to accept responsibility for his actions and letting it sink in that finally killing Superman hasn't changed anything. We also consistently cross-cut with the present, where Brainiac shrinks the Daily Planet, thus kidnapping Lois, making Lex an angry potato, because he loves her. The majority of the comics are from Lex's point of view, and in the first third of the run, we get a holistic view through these 2 points in time. A man blinded by rage. A man who can see clearly now the rage is gone. A man with the capacity to love. A man with nothing left. Consequently, this also sets up a cosmic balance where it's only without Superman around Lex can learn and become noble. From the first time I saw him, I knew that alien was going to be my enemy. Yes, we both said we wanted to protect Metropolis and of course the world from harm, but he portrayed himself with an air of inexplicable selflessness that contradicted the reality of how I knew the world worked. Therefore I knew this creature from another world had to have ulterior motives in coming to Earth, and through all the ensuing years, I could not find proof of his duplicity. I still knew he had to be defeated and destroyed, but now that I've finally got what I've so long desired, why am I not pleased? This is answered by, ironically, Superman breaking down. As Lois is abducted, he's a husband without his wife, forced to deal with the powerlessness of uncertainty, dreaming of telling Lois his regret of not declaring his love sooner, but she argues what's more important is that he did, so they have the rest of their life together, before heads explode from a suit malfunction. Superman also can't launch a rescue mission because the cold and patient Batman orders the League to wait for an opportunity to strike Brainiac. Subsequently, this portion of the comic feels like an episode of Prank Patrol in terms of how comically unfair the situation is for the poor guy. It all culminates with Superman losing control of his powers due to Brainiac's exobites and killing Lois. So he goes after Brainiac with the intent to kill, which he does. However, even though he was just a robot double, the fact that Superman considered and then gave in to murder is enough for him to exile himself. The guilt, the shame, the despair, and uncertainty consumes him. Things Superman exhibited in Man of Steel when he started smiling the day after he killed Zod. For Lex, after a life of seeing Superman from afar, judging him, hating him, to see him up close, expecting the facade to drop, the fact that when it did, he didn't see a monster but the tears of a human, and the cry of a man who truly did love the same woman he did, it changed everything for Lex. Therefore, at the grave of Lois, Lex vows to be better, to save the galaxy. Tom Taylor also wrote a Hal Jordan story here, and it genuinely blows my mind how talented he is. Brainiac needs to recharge his powers from all the fighting, so he attacks Kuragar, siphoning from the Sinestro core battery, which weakens them enough for slaughter. The Guardians order the Lanterns to not intervene, but instead contain it, and then apprehend the survivors, and immediately you can feel the storytelling roots of Tom Taylor's Injustice comics. There's Guy and Hal's banter, the sense of bleakness balanced with the naturalism of the characters, the universal humanity given to everyone, all leading to a really chilling moment where Jon Stewart just watches. Hal goes in. Every man, woman and child not protected by the ring is dead. A beaten Sinestro tries to finesse Hal into joining, arguing once they're dead, they'll be all alone in fighting Brainiac, and how the Guardians are becoming more like him as every day passes. Ego, hubris and hatred, they're the greatest weakness of everyone. What matters instead is defying those feelings. So Hal passes on the knowledge of taking out Brainiac exclusively, so his forces will drop before joining in. But it's pointless. Brainiac was a hologram. He's taken the battery, and there's this really intense moment where Hal creates a bubble for himself and the last Sinestro forces, who's got to stop Brainiac's forces from marching. It doesn't work. There's a moment where Batman in a Justice League meeting rips Superman a new butthole about his impulsiveness and poor decisions when Lois was kidnapped. Superman hears everything and arrives to apologize for his actions. He shakes Bruce's hands, thanking him for keeping him honest, while Batman admits, well, Superman's company is also what keeps him human. So what happens when there's no Superman in times of genocide, war, and planetary peril, where ideas of right and wrong aren't reinforced by the biggest idealist of them all? Batman ends up wanting to gas to death an entire alien city when Brainiac releases him to wreak havoc and kill people. If I can help 3 billion to live, what happens to me won't matter. He consciously breaks his one rule because he sees it as an act of sacrifice. But then something really beautiful happens. Batman from the future is there, and just from the side of his future self stopping him, it's enough for Batman to recognize it won't work, and he surrenders. I know, we get a vision of some greater good, but in our obsession to get there, sometimes we forget the very things we're supposed to be about. Batman, inspired by Hal, surrenders himself over to the aliens to explain and negotiate forming an alliance based on the promise that they'll be returned to their homes and get a chance to fight Brainiac together. In the final attack against Brainiac, Lex gets possessed, which causes everything from the cutscene to repeat itself. The secret society fights the Justice League, Superman returns only to die, Lex stands in shame as the world ends, as the villains are slaughtered by Brainiac after being promised that they'll live. All is lost. But that was actually a trick. Lex had so thoroughly changed that he subverted Brainiac's programming when his future self gave the heroes all the intel for the perfect counterattack. Lex even contacted Superman during his exile and got his blessing to initiate it. The solution requires a great sacrifice though. Lex will have to sacrifice his own redemption arc in order to reset the timeline, to save everyone. Lex Luthor saves the world. You see, after all these years hating him, I finally understand what motivates Superman to do what he does. And shock of shocks, I agree with them. All of them. And this might sound, well, human, but to be a better human, I had to embrace the values of the one I called alien. But because of you, when this is all over, I will go back to what I was. I will become everything I want to forget. Everything I've learned to despise. Batman sacrifices himself to give Lex the opportunity, and a white light consumes the world. The "it was all a dream" sort of ending is the cop-out conclusion that you'd kind of expect from these sort of point-of-no-return stories. But golly, the story had been so brutal, and Lex's transformation was so thorough, so satisfying, that to see it unravel and undone, to save the world, there was a real cathartic melancholy that stayed with me for a few hours afterwards. The message of these comics are quite simple, but I think quite touching. Our ideas of who our enemies are actually says more about ourselves than it does the target, because all the characters change when their ideas of the other, ideas of aliens and who the enemy is, was changed. Thus empathy instead actually becomes the most valuable strategic asset. Lex's empathy for Superman, which saved the galaxy, Hal's empathy for Sinestro, which could have stopped Brainiac from gaining more power, and as Batman's empathy for the released aliens that created an important alliance. The characters assigned who their enemies were to make themselves feel noble, but true nobility comes from letting those feelings of grandiosity go, to instead Put your hand out, even if it means putting yourself in danger. And also just don't be a dickhead.
I wanna know, where did we go wrong? Could we ever change this song into something beautiful, like the beauty that we've seen?
So this video was actually intended to be made a very, very long time ago. In fact, it was supposed to follow the Injustice 2 video, but then I kind of put it off because I was like, I don't want to keep making like video game comic book video essays and stuff. But I ended up rereading it recently because I got kind of bored, and I was like, there's something here, and so here it is.
Ugh.